So I have a couple different, oops, sorry. I have a couple different animations that I want to be working on. These were our prompts, by the way. Just wanted to reshare those with you. Of course, let me know as we're going through this. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me. These were kind of our ideas that we were trying to be influenced, or the prompts for our animations. So anything that you kind of jumped as this was a springboard to be able to include in your animation, that's awesome. So I tried to think about these things as well. And one thing that I thought would be amazing is I just want to go to space and I just want to like drive cars on the moon and stuff. So I was trying to come up with an animation for that, right? So like I had this kind of animation character I think I shared with you last time. I've gotten a little bit further on like animating or illustrating what this character is. This is going to be a little bit more complex. The motion isn't going to be terribly complex, but the illustration is more complex. And so it's going to take me a little bit of time. I had to get some reference photos, like what does a motorbike glove even look like? I wasn't even really sure. So I'm trying to like kind of fine tune this. And this is rough. Like this is rough. I don't necessarily like the transition of color here, and these shoulder pads aren't looking so good anymore. So I'm gonna have to come back and kind of change this illustration. But for animation test, I wanted to try and do this kind of like more far away shot. So let me zoom in here. You guys see this guy kind of like riding this motorbike on the moon? I thought that would be really fun. So I'm trying to come up with like different ways that I can animate things. And a couple different things that I'm planning out for the animation is, right, I want to add some kind of wiggle effect to this kind of like really long smoke or like, I don't know, dust or whatever that's coming out from behind this motorcycle. I feel like with low gravity on the moon, if you were like driving something that created dust, that dust would just like go into space basically, right? Like with that low. So I feel like this kind of cool, like big cloud is going to be fun. And I wanted to give it a little bit of shadow. So I'm going to also add some wiggle to that. And I think if the wiggles don't necessarily match up, or wave rather, not wiggle, wave. If they don't match up, I don't think that's going to be much of an issue. I also have one extra little layer here that's over top of the character. So I kind of want the character to disappear in the cloud a little bit. Let me move this over so you guys can see it. So it's just another piece. It's the same color as kind of the dust cloud that I have behind it. But I think it might be cool if this wiggles and kind of covers up the character a little bit. I'm obviously not totally done with the motorcycle, right? I mean, he doesn't have legs or torso or feet or anything like that, but I think we have enough to kind of test animate some of this stuff so far. I do have some rocks here that I wanted to move as well, and there's a little cascading shadows. I kind of like these deep shadows that are pretty fun. I may need to add in some shadow of the character of the motorcycle as well. So that might be something fun that I can think about adding that would be pretty sweet. So I want to be able to move these rocks as if they're moving, right? So I've got, 5 different rocks that maybe I'll move. I could make duplicate copies of those and kind of test some of the animation just to see how those look, so that when the character is moving, I'm intending that the dust cloud will really just wiggle. So the movement version of this object is not going to move too much across the composition. The motorcycle may just kind of go forward and backwards a little bit. But these rocks here in the shadows, I think, are going to kind of zoom across. So they're not super detailed, right? It's just kind of like one shape that's like clumped there, and then kind of like a shadow shape that, I can like deform or move or reshape or whatever, depending on how I want it to move around on the composition. So, and then just like flat color, that's just a little bit of gradient from like a lighter color to a darker color, like they're, I don't know, riding into the sunset or something, like that kind of a feel. So I want to split this one up. I'm going to put it onto a new composition because I have a lot of extra pieces. This is sort of my Illustrate file. Do you guys see how I have like a lot of different pieces within the illustration file? Those are not going to be useful to me if I'm doing an animation test. So I'm going to start a new document and just kind of copy this over and then start breaking this apart into pieces. Again, this was kind of the process that I wanted to share with you too on how I'm illustrating this. The wheel is just circle objects, right? So very basic. I kind of started off with like a basic form. I didn't really like these kind of connection bars for the, kind of the chopper style motorcycle. I don't ride a motorcycle or anything, by the way, so this is kind of foreign subject matter to me. But this I thought was getting closer a little bit to kind of the form that I was wanting. Again, it's very basic, especially at the scale that it's going to be seen on this composition. And I started with a square because I'm hoping to post this to Instagram sometime. That might be kind of fun that way. So I'm going to start a new document. So I'm going to go to File and New. And I realize you guys can't see the menu at the top. I apologize about that, but I just went to File and New. And I'm going to show you the kind of document size that I've been working on. I've been doing 1280 by 1280. I think if I looked up and I Googled like Instagram post size 2000 or 2021, I think the Instagram post size generally is like 1080 by 1080. And I thought, should be just 1:1 scale for a square ratio anyway. So 1280 by 1280 should work. I'm going to go ahead and create that document. It's RGB color, right? Because it's going to be on screen. It's for an animation. 72 PPI, or pixels per inch. I'm just going to make sure everything's unlocked, which is Command Option number 2, or Control Option number 2 if you're on a PC. I'm going to copy everything over here and just paste in place. So now I have one document with nothing in it except for my animation. And because my zoom picture here is over top of my layers panel, let me move my layers panel out just for a second. All right, can you guys see my layers panel here and my illustration okay? Can see them both? Throw me an emoji if you can see it. Cool. All right. So the next thing I need to do is actually split this into pieces. I don't think it's going to be like super easy one-click button, right? Because I want different things to move differently. For instance, I know I just want the background to be by itself. So I may actually just leave this. It looks like I have an extra piece that I might be able to delete that's behind it. So there we go. That simplified things. I want the background to be by itself. I don't think the background's going to do any movement, right? So this can be on its layer by itself in the back. No movement, doesn't need to move. It's just kind of color in the background. Here's some of my rock pieces, and I really want to group these together and make sure they're on the same layer. And I'm going to lock my rectangle background, right, so I don't accidentally click on it or move it around. But I'm going to go ahead and select these rocks because I want them to be able to move differently maybe within my animation test is kind of how I'm thinking about it. So I'm just going to drag select over those that I want to include together. I'm going to group them together, and then I'm going to make a new layer and kind of move it to a new layer. So I'm just going to go to my layer, top level layer, and this will be one of my rocks that I drag and put into that layer. I think this is probably the best way to do this because some of the pieces can stay together while some things are going to move differently. And as long as they're a different piece, this may take me a couple minutes or whatever to kind of do this process, but I think it's going to get you the most accurate results so you know exactly what you're animating. This level 1 or layer 1 is eventually just going to be my background. So I'm going to go ahead and rename that to background and just double click on it to rename it. This will be one of my rocks, but instead of just naming them like rock 1, rock 2, I thought it might be fun to give them names. This is Winston rock. Just something for fun for you. I mean, if you want to just name it like rock 1 or give it a direction like lower left rock or something like that, that's fine. But I'm going to give them names because I think that's kind of fun. Here's my kind of biggest rock. So this one's going to be, again, going to select them both, hit Command G to group them together, and go ahead and go to my top layers here, make a new layer, and then just drag that group onto that layer. What should this one be? Trevor? There we go, Trevor Rock. They're all like related to each other because they have the same last name. Here's the littlest one, which I thought was kind of nice to include. A nice contrast between the bigger rocks. So I'm going to group this one together. Make a new layer and move this one up. What name should I do for this one? Name? Anyone?
Chris Rock.
Chris, nice. Perfect. Chris Rock, there you go. He's in there as well. Here's another one. This one's over here. I'm going to group this one together. Again, make a new layer. I'm just hitting the new layer button. I could really probably move this shorter, right? Doesn't have to be so big. And let's just move this group, this new group that I made, and put it into that layer. This will be Beatrix Rock. I don't know. And let's go ahead and make another one. This will be a group together, new layer. I need one more name, please. Kevin, Steve.
Dwayne.
Dwayne Rock. Nice. Okay, I saw the Dwayne. I saw the chat. I'm gonna have to read the chat actually. I don't know how to spell that. I'm terrible at spelling. Is it DWAYN? Okay. Nice. Yeah, the rock. I like it. The rock. Very good. All right, excellent. So we've got, if we just look at it, we've got everything that's kind of on one flat background. We've got our different rock pieces, which is exactly what we want to be able to animate those separately. It may be that I could animate them together as a group, but I really want to give the sense that the things that are closer to our perspective, right, the screen view, kind of where we are as a viewer, that those things move a little bit faster compared to the things that are further away, because that will make it seem more realistic and also make it seem like there's really intense depth as it goes backwards into space for this particular composition. So I'm going to go ahead and then choose my shadow piece, which is one piece that I also want to move. And it's going to start looking a little funky, right? Because some of these pieces need to overlap each other. So I'm going to go ahead and select my path. I'm going to make a new layer here. And you know what? I might put this below my rocks because these are maybe a little bit more of the kind of shadowed pieces. Or maybe should it be on top? Actually, now I'm thinking about it. if for some reason I had a rock disappear, it should also see that there's a shadow there. So maybe I'll move that on the top, but let me just move this path. It's just one path, so I don't need to group it or anything. Again, it's going to start looking a little funky. Don't worry, we'll get there. This is my shadow. So maybe we'll call this, dust cloud shadow, or we can give it a name. I kind of like this naming idea. Dusty the cloud shadow. There you go. Now we need to put the main cloud piece. This is going to be kind of the main piece here. I have actually two cloud pieces that I want to include in here. So I'm going to go ahead and make another layer. This one is going to need to be on top of the shadow in my layering. And I'll go ahead and move that onto a new layer. Here we go. This is Cloudy the Cloud. There we go. Oh, I put an extra L in there. Capital L. There we go. I like to name my layers and kind of have fun with that. Okay, so now I also have this extra little piece, which if I select it, this is how you can select any layers. Again, this little circle here. This one is actually on top of to try and hide the motorcycle and the character, the little space guy that's on there. So I'm going to go ahead and put that. It needs to be on top of Cloudy the Cloud. So let's move him up here, and we'll call this, top layer or something. But that's kind of boring. Let's name it something fun. Little cloudy. How about that? The cloud. Okay. So those are layering up pretty nice. Now I need to start breaking up something where I'm going to try and have a little bit more complex motion, right? So we kind of understand that these rocks are going to be moving kind of from the bottom right-hand corner to the top left-hand corner at different speed levels. The background's not going to do hardly any moving at all, so that it'll be just really locked at the bottom. And then I need to kind of split up my bike. And just because I can't see it very well here, I'm going to go ahead and just move it to a top layer that is just, the bike, and then we'll just break it into pieces from there. All right, so now I can see my bike, and I want to move some of these things separately. So let's take a look at this. I really want to kind of dive into this group and copy and paste some of these things out of there so I can kind of move them separately. So I chose to not, let me double click on here. You can double click to go to isolation mode, which helps you work on just a group at a time. I did not, when I was making this wheel, think about trying to make it spin this way. Do you guys see how it's kind of an egg shape with the kind of like direction or angle that I have this perspective on? So that is not going to be helpful for trying to make something turn. There's also, if this was a perfect circle, which it isn't, but even if it was a perfect circle, this would not be a useful way to show motion either because it's such a flat color. So we need to come up with a different way to make something look like it spins. So I thought about these little guys here. I don't know if you guys remember like looking at some cool rims as they're going down the street or something, but have you guys ever thought about when you watch things spin and they're going really fast, sometimes they don't look like they're going really fast. They actually look like they're going slow. So I'm wondering if these kind of guys might be helpful in just kind of making it look like they swing slightly back and forth like this to make it look like they go around a little bit. So that was kind of my idea. Now, do you guys see how it's also, since it's an egg shape, not really helpful to animate these separately or together as a group rather? I am going to have to animate these separately to get them to rotate correctly so that they just do this kind of like swinging motion as the bike goes forward and backward, right? And I think that will give the illusion that there is some like really fast motion on that wheel, which I want to kind of show. So the bike's going to go like this, and these little guys are going to swing like back and forth like that. But I need to get these, let me go back here, probably on separate layers all by themselves. So to be able to do this, because I'm in isolation mode, I'm going to go ahead and select them all, and then I'll put them onto different layers. So I'm going to hit Command X or Control X to cut them. I'm going to double click to get back out of isolation mode. I'm going to put these on a top layer because they need to go on the top. And I'm probably going to call these my spinny guys, spinny blue. I think there was a blue one. And I'll go ahead and just Command Shift and V to paste in place. So now those are on their own layer. So I've got a blue one and two that are white. And I'm going to cut these out as well. Command X, I'll make a new layer. This will be spinny white one. I don't know, should we say bottom maybe? So we know which one is on top. And Command Shift and V to paste. And then I have one more that I want to split, Command X, and I'll make a new layer, spinny white top. And paste in place. Now, again, the reason I'm doing these individually is because when I set up the rotation point, I can actually move the anchor point so that it's in the center of where I want it to spin around, which is kind of the center of this blue circle that's on top. So when I rotate this, it should rotate from this center kind of around like this and just go back and forth. And I can make sure that that lines up correctly with the other three, or the other two rather, in this kind of animation when I'm setting them up each individually. So maybe kind of a complicated way to make it look like it's spinning. You know, I could add a couple lines on here or something and try to make those look like they go around really fast, but I need something to show that there's fast motion on there. And I thought these little kind of hints of kind of like a rim or something would do that. All right. Now, there, I found something else that I'm gonna have to do, guys. Check this out. Because this blue one, as it rotates around, or these white ones, as they swing back and forth, might go underneath this, I don't know what this is called in a motorcycle, but this little like bar that connects the body of the motorcycle to the wheel, that might need to be on top, right? And that might actually be something fun that I can bounce separately as well. So those need to be on their own layer so that I can move those around. I am adding a couple little fun things that way. So I'm going to go ahead and double click into my group here. I'm going to cut this one, Command X to cut that one out. Double click to get back out. I'll make a new layer that needs to be on top of the kind of shiny, spiny? What did I put spiny on it? Spinny. Oh, they're spinny. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and make a new layer, and I'm going to paste this on top, Command Shift. Now it's on top of the light, which means I'm going to have to separate the light and layer that up differently. Starts to get kind of complicated, right? It's okay. So this is my wheel bar, we'll say, and this one's on top. If I want to bounce the wheel bar that's underneath here at the same time, I could double click and extract that one as well. So double click, here's kind of the lower gray piece, and I'll hit Command X to cut that. And then I'll make this one needs to go beneath the bike, right? So the body of the bike that might move together by itself, it actually needs to be beneath it. So this is going to be the wheel bar on the back. I don't know why it's got to be capital, it just does. All right, and then paste in place to get it to go there. I think that this needs a double N here. Spinny. So it's a short I for spinny. There we go. All right, so that's layering up okay, but now I need to fix the light, right? So the light needs to be on top. So I'll go ahead and select the group of objects that makes the light. It's just a couple overlapping circles. I think I had to draw one little cover piece that I thought made a kind of nice directional light. I might animate the light eventually. I did have a couple of those examples when I was kind of doing the illustration tests as I was putting these together. And I might kind of add the light in because so that can kind of bounce separately or kind of like bounce and fade or something that might be kind of cool. So I'm going to Command Shift and paste that in place. So this is my light here. Headlight. Here we go. And I want these things to kind of bounce separately. So the rest of the body here of the bike can probably be mostly the same. So like this piece and these darker pieces just need to be underneath the light to work. So I might make this whole kind of chassis or body part of that bike fit all together. So I'll hit Command X to cut that, double click to get back out. And this needs to be underneath the light and these body pieces here, these spinny, or these wheel tops. There we go. So I'll put this here and paste in place. That looks like it's lining up in the layering. So this is the chassis. And then I have this kind of like body piece here that can go together. Those are 3 pieces. I'll cut that. And let's make a new one of that as well. And this can go on top of the chassis. And this, I don't know what this name of this is, but I'll say chassis, the chassis top or something. And please correct me if you guys know what the real name's supposed to be. Ooh, this actually needs to be below this bar. Okay, so I'm gonna have to cut that out. Put that on top as well. There we go. Now it's lining up the way I wanted it to. Now I need to get the handlebars and the dude's hands. So I think I can animate those all together unless I'm going to make some kind of motion separately with those. And I'll cut those. And we'll put those on top here. This is handlebars. That actually needs to be beneath the light layer though. Oops. And this is handlebars. All right, so this is layering up so far. And then maybe I'll make the arms and the body of the dude bounce a little bit separately from the head. So these will be separated, the arm bounce, Command X. And I'll put these beneath the handlebars, arms. There we go. And then this all needs to be together for the character. And I think that's enough for my animation test of what I'm trying to animate and sort of test these things out. Again, what I'm hoping for is that these will bounce a little bit differently and kind of add some character to the character. So this needs to be on top of the arms, head and body. And we'll paste those. Okay, let's double check that I have the wheel now is sort of all by itself. So this is the bike wheel now. I'll maybe go through and do one more test just to get this to work, but I think that's everything in my composition split into layers so that the layering of the illustration still makes sense. But this is just about ready then for me to take into After Effects to be able to put together. You do need everything on these top level layers. So it has to be the top level layers for it to be able to be translated into After Effects so that we can put those together. All right, so let's jump into After Effects, guys. And again, I'm just going to start from scratch so that it is fully visible on the whole process. So again, I can't see many of you as I'm working on this. I'll try to make my window a little bit smaller, but just let me know if you have any questions as I'm going along. I'm happy to have questions, but I'm just trying not to have that screen up, covering up half of my screen on the recording. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the File menu and choose Import. And I'm going to choose Import File. It looks like the hotkey for this is Command-I. Maybe I'll use that in the future. That's kind of a nice thing to notice. And I'll go ahead and start importing this file here. And can you guys see my pop-up window? Again, I can't see you, so just someone say yes if you can.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. So I'm gonna go ahead and select my test animation. This is my animation test for the Motor Moon Bike guy. And I wanna make sure that this is changed to composition and retain layer sizes. So I'm gonna go ahead and select that, and then I'm gonna hit open. And now I have a folder that contains all my layers. That's awesome. That's what I want. And I'm going to go ahead and drag down this footage file that looks like footage, right? It looks like kind of a film strip. And I'm going to drop this off into my timeline, my layer panel here. And there it is, my composition. And just to double check that this is right, if I go to the composition menu and choose composition settings, it should have the right scale or size to the document. And of course, if I need to add more duration, I think 10 seconds is fine to start with. It's set to full resolution, which is good. That looks good. Everything looks good there. But the right composition size is what I wanted to double check by clicking that menu. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And then I'm going to double click into this layer. This is sort of my pre-compose layer that contains all of my layers that I want to animate. So I'm going to double click on that to go into my layers panel. Whoop, try one more time, double click. There we go. And now I have all my layers split up into different pieces. So one of the things that we want to do to start is to make sure that these layers are sort of set up with the right anchor point. So let's double check that here. So here's my headlight. And as I zoom in on my character design here, again, Z key and then click and drag to be able to zoom in. And it looks like it's fine. That headlight anchor point is in the middle. There's the anchor point of my handlebars. That might not be the right place that I want my handlebars to be animated from. So what I'm going to do is probably move this anchor point. And this is this tool right here. This called is the pan behind tool, in parentheses, anchor point tool. The hotkey for this one is Y. But if I select that tool, what I can do is actually click and drag and move that around. And I apologize, that probably messed up the screen resolution there. But I'm just resetting my anchor point to be where I would like it to sort of bounce from. So if I want to add a little bounce motion to the handlebars and the hands and this animation character here, I can actually set that animation there. So I'm going to check the head and body. Let's go ahead and move this down so it's a little bit more on the neck. Here's the arms. They're all in one layer. I'll kind of put that in the neck as well. Here's the wheel bar. That's probably fine. There's my shiny button pieces. Those are okay. Chassis, let's kind of move that over a little bit there. Here's the top of the chassis. That's probably fine in the center. And the main chassis piece. So most of the time you want your anchor point to be wherever you would like the motion to stem from. So for instance, if I wanted to kind of rotate the wheel in this case, I would want this to be in the center of the wheel. If it was a joint and like an arm, You'd want to be able to rotate from the shoulder if it was that upper arm piece. So you'd want to put the anchor point right on the shoulder. Same thing with the elbow or the wrist. You want to set these up to where you'd like them to be. Now this is the back of the wheel bar. I actually want that to move from the center of the wheel. And then I'm ready to set up my rock pieces. So let me zoom back out. I'm just hitting Z to zoom, holding on the Option key to zoom back out. Let's see, here's my Dwayne rock. He's the furthest one away. Should be fine way back there. That anchor point there. So it did a pretty good job of setting my anchor points up on the layers. Those look fine. You might want them to scale from the rock rather than from the shadow, so that the shadow gets smaller if I want to change the scale of this object. So what I could do is use my anchor point tool and kind of move my anchor point to the center of the rock so that it scales from that position. Let me find Trevor Rock. It's over here. That's the big one. Set that up in the center there. Winston Rock, where's Winston? Oh, I just did that one. Dwayne Rock, I think, was in the back. That one's good. Beatrix Rock over here. Here we go. Chris Rock was good. All right. Let's find the points at when I want to move my clouds. And this may be one that I actually want to edit a little bit. So the cloud pieces, here's the little cloud. Let's see where the anchor point is for this one. Oops, wrong layer. There we go. So this cloud piece is actually drawn from the center, but I don't want it to wiggle from that point. I want it to wiggle from the center, the like front point here. So I'm going to move that anchor point to be sort of at the front of where that bike is, because I want that to be the source of this cloud. Same thing with this background cloud here. So I'm going to move that down towards the bike so that it wiggles or waves from that point. And let's do our dust cloud shadow. Just do the shadow. Just do the shadow, the cloud shadow down there. And then my background doesn't matter because I'm not going to move anything in the background. So that'll just stay static. And really, I could go over here and lock this layer if I want to. There's the lock key right there. So that works. Let's maybe start with some of my wave test animations to try and get the smoke to work. Or this dust cloud rather. So let's go over to the effects and presets panel. If you can't see this in the recording, it's over on the right-hand side. If you can't see it, you can go to the window and then go down to effects and presets to open that panel up. There's just a search function at the top, and I'm going to type in wave. So I'm going to add a wave warp to my Cloudy the Cloud. So here's my wave warp, and I'll just drag this down to Cloudy the Cloud and drop that off. And now I can sort of test some of this animation. There's the wave working. I don't know if you guys can see that on your screen. I'm going to reduce my workspace so I can maybe watch it in about 1 second. And I'll go ahead and hit play here so that it renders. Again, I'm sorry for the zoom quality if you can't see it very well. So that looks pretty good. It's kind of a fun wave, except it's going the wrong direction, right? I wanted to come away from the bike. So let's change the direction here. I'm going to hit pause here on my space bar. Maybe stop playing. There we go. And let's change the direction so that it goes the other way. And maybe I wanted to kind of go up in the direction that way. Let's see how that looks. Looks kind of cool. Maybe I don't want the waves to be quite as intense because I already animated it with some wave. So let's try a smaller wave width and see how that looks. So let me pause my animation there. Doesn't want to stop playing. Stop, please. There we go. All right. Maybe let's turn down the wave width so it's not quite as extreme. Maybe let's try 25. No, let's go up. That will look better. Let's try 60. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Let's find the timing on this that I like. That looks nice, actually. 60 looks pretty good. Let's try a little bit bigger and see what it looks like. Let's try 100. Maybe it looks a little bit more natural. I don't know. I'll have to test 60 and 100 and see what I like. Let's try 75 in between. That looks pretty good. Let's try a different wave height. Let's see what double the size looks like. Oh, that pushed it out. Maybe let's try half the size, 5. That looks pretty nice. Let me hit play and see what that looks like for my test. No, I liked it better at 10. Wave speed, you can set the speed here. Let's try double speed. So it was at 1, let's try 2. Definitely makes it look like it's going a little bit faster there. Now, let's do 1 again. That was looking pretty good. We also want to pin this. So let's see if we can pin it on the right edge, because we want to make it move less where it's closer to the bike and make it move more on the outside as it kind of comes away from it. Looks pretty good. So if you can tell, there's less movement. I don't know how well you can see this, but there's less movement here as it coming off the bike, and it gets a little bit, it kind of builds up to its scalar size as it's back here, which I think that looks pretty nice. So that is one of my test animations that I wanted to test, was the wave. I can do the same thing on the little shadow here. I can drag that wave warp, and we'll try that one more time. There is a way to also copy effects. If you wanted to try that, we can actually select the effect panel, select the wave warp down here in the layers panel. Let me move this up so you guys can see that a little bit better. So you can actually select the wave warp down here and you can copy and paste that. But let me just practice setting this up again. It may look a little bit different if I set that up differently. And let's see, I added one. It's probably a little bit too intense, right? We need to change the angle again. I want to do normal wave speed. I'll pin it on the right-hand side. And I think the wave width that I liked was about 75. Let's see how that looks. Go ahead and hit spacebar to test it. That looks kind of cool. All right. And one thing I do want to do is, let's say I want to move the bike around, I do want the clouds to kind of follow the bike. I have one more cloud that I need to do, which is the little cloud that's kind of on top of the bike, so it makes him disappear, the character disappear. So I'll need to do that one more time. But one thing that I could do, and let me move this up so we can look at it. I'll just hit tilde on my layers list so it covers everything. I want these clouds to follow the bike. So which of these layers for the bike should I have it follow? Maybe the wheel, if I want it to kind of follow the wheel. So let's see, this is the wheel bar. There's the bike wheel. So this layer may need to be my main layer when I am having the cloud follow that piece. So let me try some kind of parenting. I think maybe we'll do the bike wheel here. Dusty the cloud will also follow the bike wheel. And the little cloud, which I need to add some motion to, can follow the bike wheel as well. The rocks will be animated separately. I do need the wheel and the bike to also follow the wheel. So I could animate on the wheel itself. The chassis should also follow along with the wheel. The flat wheel is probably not going to do much besides just changing position. So this will work out for that test. And I'll probably parent most of these together here as well. So I can probably maybe select all these and just see if that works by having them all set to, which one was that one, number 12? There we go. So that should help. Let me hit tilde again. We'll come back out and kind of look at the animation. And let's just test it, right? I set up all that parenting. So if this is done right, if I should be able to move just this one layer and have all those layers kind of move around. So let me see if I can do that. I have to get really close here so you can click on the object. Yay. Okay, cool. It kind of like re-rastered itself or whatever. So you can't see it right away, but that is all moving together. So if I wanted to add some motion to the bike, which maybe some bounce would be fun. So let's try that with the little position. And maybe we'll start there. Let me back up to where it was originally. Start the stopwatch in the position, move forward a couple frames, and we'll just bounce. Come down, forward a couple frames, and we'll bounce. We'll bounce. Okay, and I can test that animation. Let's see how that looks. Hit spacebar. Not too bad. I might need to limit the amount of movement so it's really just a little like, vertically on maybe the y-axis by itself. So maybe I'll fine tune that a little bit. Move these a little bit closer together. I can copy and paste the same property. So if I really don't want the X movement to move, let's see, double check, this is X movement. I can copy this value, move to the next frame, and make sure that value is the same by pasting that in. So this can be the same value. Let's see how that looks. There, that's kind of fun. Looks like he's bouncing a little bit. Let's see if I can add the wave motion to the smoke. The little piece that I want to kind of overlap the characters. So that was the little cloudy cloud. And I will do the same wave warp there. And we want it to go kind of in this direction. Let's just test that straight up. Let's see what that looks like. Is it covering the character? No. And you know what? I know why. Because that layer is actually beneath the individual pieces. Whoops, I put the wrong layer on here. Let me back that up. I put it on Cloudy the Cloud. That needs to be on the little cloudy cloud. And this layer actually needs to be above the bike itself. So I need to move that up higher on my layers list so that I can cover up some of the character. And let's see how that looks now. I need to pin it on the corner so it's not waving on the front, but it is doing what I want it to right here, which is to cover up the character just a little bit. So let me get it to go the right direction here, and I will pin it on the right-hand edge. It's kind of subtle, but there it is, just a little hint over top of his shoulder, which is kind of what I want. Maybe if I rotate it just a little bit, though, that'll help. So I'm not going to animate the rotation. I just want to rotate it so that, again, from that anchor point, I can rotate it just a little bit, maybe just like 1 degree clockwise, maybe 2 degrees clockwise. Let's try 3 degrees clockwise. There we go. It's covering up the character a little bit, which is kind of what I was hoping for. And let's test that animation again. Ooh, that's looking fun. Okay, cool. All right, let's zoom out here. I think what I'd like to test next is the motion of these rocks. So I've got a little bounce on the character. I can mess around with those kind of spinning wheel items, but let's get to the rocks here. These are my Winston and Trevor and Chris and Beatrix and Dwayne. We've got to get these guys to move a little bit. So let's move them here. I'm going to go ahead and set a position for Dwayne. And actually, maybe a good way to do this, let's cover up everything else we don't want to look at right now. So I'm going to use the shy to shy all these layers that I don't want to see. And I'll just push that shy button. And we're not dealing with the clouds right now either. And we're not going to animate the background, so I don't need to see that. Oh, there we go. All right, so now I just got my rock layers, which is what I wanted. That way I can see those a little bit easier. And I want to be able to animate them all the position. So if I just select them all and hit P, now I can open up the position. And I kind of want them all to start where they are, right? So I can just hit that stopwatch and that sets them all at once. And now I can start animating their position. So where do I want this to go, right? So like here I have Dwayne Rock. I would like it to be pushed backwards into space and up a little bit. So something like that, to make it look like this is moving very quickly. And I'm just test animation, like 1 second. Here's Beatrice Rock, right? I want her to go backwards as well and kind of back into space. And I may have to, play around with these kind of like time, the numbers to make sure that they line up. Again, I moved my timeline over to kind of where I would like it to be at point B, or the second point, and then I'm just moving some of these values backwards. Trying to get about the same amount of movement out of them. And Trevor. And Winston. All right, and let's see what that looks like. Let's see if this makes it look like he's zooming across my moon rock here. And I'll hit spacebar. Yeah, I need to play around with that a little bit, but there's kind of doing the general thing that I would like it to do. What I could do is make some copies of Chris and Trevor and Winston and Beatrix and Dwayne and kind of put them also over here and have them stagger a little bit. So, you know, they start and stop and some more rocks kind of show up over off to the side a little bit and then also kind of move in the back. But that is a basic test animation of some of the movement that I would like to have and to just kind of get the feel of what that looks like. And it's really over just 1 or 2 seconds. You know, I could span this out over 10 seconds and kind of add some more rocks to go in, and I may do that next. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and hit stop there. Stop. It gets like in play mode, and my computer's like, now we're just going to play this 15 more times. Stop, please. Okay, well, anytime. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing there because my computer's like locked up. Let's see if I stop share, if that will help. And let me pause the record real quick. My computer's